Hello and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to talk about the novels that I read in the month of February. First, I have read an anthology that is called Buch, which is a German anthology directed at people who have not the language capacity to understand German very well, but still want to read good literature in German. I think the idea of this is pretty cool. I will say in its execution, I think it failed just slightly because there were authors using really niche vocabulary that I myself, as a native speaker, did not understand. But on the other hand, there were authors who were able to create an atmosphere with using simple sentences, and still it turned out to be good writing. So it's like I'm a little bit split in the middle for my opinion on this. I would say that this is definitely not beginner friendly. So if you're only starting out with German, stay away from this. If you are like a B1 level, which like it's not beginner anymore, but you have a basic understanding, you understand clear and familiar structures, and you can maybe also already speak a bit on your own. Then I read Real Life by Brandon Taylor, and this is a story with similar vibes to Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. It even has a very similar cover, also a person looking like hurtfully into the distance. Maybe it's the sun that's blinding them, but also maybe it's just the pain of life and existence. Anyways, this, opposed to Little Life, is much more focused on topics of racism, as our main character is a black PhD student who is also gay, so he has like double the trouble and struggle. And throughout the book, he does get confronted with a lot of internalized hate and blame. He gets accused of things that he could have never had influenced. He was just born into circumstances, into a system that would always have him at the disadvantage. And this continues in the conversations that he has and the struggle that gets not seen by other people, especially white people. It is quite slow. It's more of a character study, and there's not necessarily something that this book moves towards, so there's no real arc. It's just interactions and the life of Wallace. Then I have read Frightmares by Eva V. Gibson, which is a middle grade horror, so it's not honestly scary. It is not at all scary. And this is about Dave, a worker at a sort of haunted house, like where tourists or people go on the weekend and want to get scared, like at a fair. Dave one day, while at work, discovers the corpse of his co-worker, and is then shocked and tries to find help and reach out to people, be like, oh my god, I found this corpse, help me, there's a dead person in here, and nobody takes him seriously because they all think it's an act. So he runs out, and when he comes back into his room, the corpse is gone. In full honesty, I had some issues with some of the decision making of the main character. I did not understand why he did certain stuff, like for example, which is at the beginning, which is why I'm telling you this, but for example, when he discovers this corpse and it vanishes, he never tells anybody about it. Not his co-workers, not the police, he never mentions it. And I don't understand why. Why are you not saying, hey, today I saw that body. Can you check on this co-worker? Is she still alive? Things would have been way easier. They could have been figured out so quickly if he just asked, but he doesn't. And in general, there were some plot holes, I think, that also a 12-year-old would be able to detect. It's not just me sitting there reading a book for 12-year-olds being like, I guess I'm just too smart for this. No, 12-year-olds have the capacity of understanding that this is just bonkers. It wasn't badly written, however. I did struggle with interest just because of the lack of horror in the book. So I wouldn't recommend it to grown-ups, both because of the plot holes and because of the lack of horror if you're looking for horror. And because we're at the topic of children's books, I'm gonna talk about the Invention of Hugo Cabret, which is by Brian Selznick. I'm really sorry, this is also a children's book. And it's one that I got when I was 13 or something, and I wanted to have it because it has really lovely drawings inside, And then there's sometimes a little bit of text. and you have a story, but sometimes also the story is told through the pictures, so maybe this is something in between a graphic novel and a book. So as I mentioned, this is something that I got when I was 13. I begged my mother to buy this for me, and I did it under the premise of this being a tool to help me improve my English, because I was 13, you know, my English wasn't the best. It still not is, but it still isn't. Oh my god. So yeah, there is endless shame attached to this book, because obviously I only read a couple of pages and then I realized that I don't understand enough, and I DNF that I put it aside and never touched it again. And now finally I've picked it up because I couldn't bear having this on my shelves anymore. I am not a child anymore, so definitely the story lagged for me. The drawings, however, are really cool. I still enjoyed them at this time. And then finally, I have read We Spread by Iain Reid. I've read also I'm Thinking of Ending Things, and this is very similar to me in terms of vibes. I am, by the way, not telling you what this is about, because I feel like if I'm telling you, it kind of subtracts the fun of reading the whole thing and kind of discovering what this is about and what is going on, because as I said, like, information is spread out through the books in very like small chunks, and you just slowly come to realize like where we are and what we're doing. Gosh, I'm Thinking of Ending Things, as well as We Spread, is something that ended up being pretty middle ground for me. So I did not think it was horrible. There were definitely some elements in here that I felt like were super well done. Like, for example, the way that hints and information are dropped so subtly, and some sort of play on perspective and time that gives the story a very eerie vibe to it. And you know, this feeling of questioning whether you're just witnessing a very unreliable narrator, or if something is actually really, really, really wrong. And that's really well done. But I think where it lost me is at the second half of this. There really were no changes or variations to the scary scenes anymore, and it became a bit repetitive. And I felt like I was just kind of waiting for this to end already, because, you know, I was just missing some sort of variety that kept me interested in the horror. But I would for sure say that if you enjoyed I'm Thinking of Ending Things, you will probably also enjoy We Spread. I guess we're at the end now, so I'll say thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you at another time in another video. Bye!